What is going on, guys? Money Webby here, back again on Friday with my updated DFS picks of the week. A few guys at every position I'm extremely high on. You need to be considering these players this week, week 6. And yeah, I think they're going to be going off this week. Got really good matchups. So before we get going, a big thing that goes into making YouTube videos, likes are huge. If you guys could spam the like button, let's try to get over 100 likes in this video. If you're watching this and you haven't liked it, I really would appreciate it if you could. So thank you if you can do that. Also, if you could subscribe to the channel. If you are new here, I put in a lot of research into these plays. And yeah, I'd put a decent amount of work into figuring out who I think are going to be the top plays each week. I contribute at PFF for some fantasy content, so I have access to all their stats. So a lot of that kind of goes into what I'm looking at. So if you like their work, some of my stuff kind of comes from them. So appreciate all the support. Thank you. Let's hop right into it, though. So the first thing we're looking at here is quarterback. And with running back this week, guys dropping like flies. Todd Gurley, doubtful. Likely going to be heavy Malcolm Brown with some Darrell Henderson, who I think is a really good player, but this hasn't been on the field, so it's kind of tough to trust him. But that makes Malcolm Brown an obvious value. We got guys like LATAVIUS Murray with Alvin Kamara, highly questionable for this game, didn't practice on Friday. Adrian Peterson with a good game script at a really cheap price tag. So some really big values at running back. So I'm going to be paying up for Deshaun Watson, first of all, in a game with an over-under of 55. When you got that many points being implied by Vegas, it's obviously going to raise some eyes. And Deshaun Watson, as good as they come at quarterback, especially against man coverage, really struggled week 4 against the Carolina Panthers, but they play heavy zone coverage. So don't the Jacksonville Jaguars every once in a while. They can play heavy zone coverage, so he really struggled in those games. But against Kansas City here, down probably their best defender in Chris Jones, he can really get after their passer. I think that's going to give Deshaun Watson more time, and when you give Deshaun Watson time, he's going to pick you apart, especially against man coverage, which allows these top-notch wide receivers like DeAndre Hopkins, Will Fuller, Kiki Kute, however you pronounce the last name. All I know is that he is a fantastic wide receiver, and they got some really good options here. So I think they're going to be able to beat some man coverage. Deshaun Watson's going to be able to get some time, and I think he's going to be able to go off again here this week in a high-scoring affair. I think we're going to go ahead and lock him in there in this core lineup for this week. But also, if you want to pay up for another quarterback, I think Kyler Murray is going to be that guy here at 6,500, going against the same defense that Deshaun Watson absolutely destroyed last week. Deshaun Watson looked like he was sleepwalking in that game because it was so easy. He was 28 out of 33, good amount of rushing yards. And the thing with Kyler Murray that I absolutely loved heading into this year for his fantasy upside was his rushing ability. I mean, the guy is as fast as lightning, super quick and agile. He can run against any defense. It doesn't matter that he's undersized. He's going to be able to run right around you. So the last few weeks, he's finally getting that going. 69 rushing yards week 3, 93 last week against the Bengals. And this is honestly, the second, or the Cincinnati Bengals are a really bad defense, but this Atlanta defense is very bad as well. Probably, honestly, a worse, just kind of secondary unit with how they've been defending the wide receivers. So if Christian Kirk plays in this game, I think Kyler Murray, his passing upside is higher than it's been recently, and also has that rushing ability, especially with David Johnson a little bit banged up. Maybe we see some more designed runs for a guy like Kyler Murray. Like I'm saying, he has crazy speed, so they can do some kind of things like that. So I think he has really big upside in that soft matchup against the Atlanta Falcons. So if you want to pay up at quarterback, I think Watson, Kyler Murray are your guys. And it's definitely easy to pay up a quarterback when you got such good values at running back this week. But if you want to pay down, Kirk Cousins is the man you're looking for at 5,200. Going against Philly, funnel defense, defend the run extremely good. So I think Dalvin Cook is going to struggle here. They're going to have to pass the ball a little bit more against Chicago, when Dalvin Cook wasn't able to run the ball. 36 passing attempts, solid amount of attempts. Obviously, Chicago Bears, really good secondary. Kirk Cousins does struggle against good defenses, but I don't think the Eagles are that good of a defense, especially as a pass defense. So I think he is definitely in play at 5,200 if you want to save some money there. Now for running back, the value is the king at running back this week, like I've been saying. But there are also some guys that seem underpriced in the mid-tier. So I think LEVEON Bell, mentioned him earlier in the week in my first look video. Same thing goes as I was saying earlier. Offense is going to be a lot better with Sam Darnold back in the starting lineup. We saw Luke Falk just look absolutely abysmal the last few weeks. The guy, what seemed like he was like afraid to throw the ball down the field, just held the ball way too long every single play. Not sure if wide receivers weren't getting open, but I think it was just more on Luke Falk just really holding back this offense. And week 1 against the Bills, they weren't too bad. I mean, Bell was given some opportunities. Bills defense, one of the best this year. And I think he did pretty well. I mean, 23 DraftKings points. 23 DraftKings points, had the touchdown, and he almost had another touchdown as well. They got into the red zone a lot more. I mean, with Luke Falk behind center, I think they might have got into the red zone once, and that was against Cleveland, I'm pretty sure, when Le'Veon Bell fumbled when he was heading into the red zone. So, I mean, this offense has been dreadful the last few weeks. And against Dallas here, it sets up as a really good matchup. Not anything that really goes up beyond the numbers, but just based on what I saw last week out of the Cowboys defense. They're overcommitting left and right against Aaron Jones. He was able to bounce it outside a ton. So I think Le'Veon Bell, one of the best running backs with that ability of bouncing it out. He's so patient, obviously, as everyone says, in the backfield. But the thing is, the thing he does when he is so patient is that he sets up the cornerbacks and stuff to over pursue, come in on him, and then he can just bounce it out around those cornerbacks, which Aaron Jones did like 100 times to Byron Jones last week, as we saw when he like waved to him when he went into the end zone. So I think Le'Veon Bell has that similar ability. With Sam Darnold back in the offense, they were just a better offense is always good for running back. So I think the opportunities have been there. He's been pretty much playing every single snap when they've actually been in the game. So as opportunity goes, he's similar to Leonard Fournette, where it's just a matter of time before he breaks out, as we saw Leonard Fournette over the past 2 weeks. So I think Le'Veon Bell is honestly one of my favorite plays at running back at 6,400. And then we're going to pair him up with Derrick Henry. Not crazy upside, but the rushing ability against this defense, I think, can't be underrated here. I mean, just kind of not talked about enough, as we saw the Broncos defense week 4 against this Jacksonville Jaguars offense, which sets up pretty damn similar, I would say, to the Titans offense, where they have pretty mobile quarterbacks, some really talented wide receivers on the outside, and A.J. Brown, Corey Davis. And the Jaguars are kind of the same way. You got DJ Chark there, who's been playing really well. But they both have those bulldozing running backs that have underrated speed, and their strengths are their left side of the offensive line. And that's what Leonard Fournette, and even when Armstead went in, they were just able to bulldoze their way on the left side, where Fournette was able to bounce it out, run through some big holes. And then with Taylor Lewan back, who came off suspension last week, also got their right guard back. They're starting a right guard back from injury this week. So the offensive line back to 100%, and I think they can open up some big holes for Derrick Henry in this game. Roger Saffold, the left guard, is also a very good run-blocking guard. He came from the Rams last year, and he's been definitely missed for the Rams this year with Todd Gurley. So I think Derrick Henry can get over 100 yards, and if he can find the end zone once or twice, good value at 6,100. So I'm going to go ahead and lock him in there as my second running back. And then obviously, I don't need to talk about this too much, but the guys that I was mentioned earlier, Adrian Peterson, positive game script for once, probably here. Should be able to get the workload. Obviously, limited upside as he's not a receiver. But I think at 4,500, it's kind of an easier play at that value. Kenyon Drake maybe at 4,400. I was on him more earlier in the week when there weren't guys getting injured and opening up value, so not as big on him anymore. But Latavius Murray, I think, is my favorite value with Kamara likely out. I'm just assuming he's going to be out, as he didn't practice on Friday, which is never good. So if Latavius Murray is the workhorse here, I think he'll get over 20 touches, honestly. Be on the field maybe 80+% of the time for the snaps, which when you're, doesn't matter how talented you are, you literally could be me out there. And if I'm getting, as long as I'm like an NFL size running back, if I'm getting that high a percent of snaps, that many touches, something's going to break out one of those times. And I mean, the Jaguars defense has not looked that great over the last few weeks. Christian McCaffrey was able to run all over them. Also, Philip Lindsay and Royce Freeman had some success against them. So it's not a really defense you need to be that scared of. So I think Latavius Murray is definitely a good play at 3,700. So I'm going to throw him there in the flex there. Has a really good value. Then we're going to go with first wide receiver, DeAndre Hopkins. This is kind of a stack play here in a high upside game with a lot of points potentially being scored. And he's just due for some positive regression with the touchdown. Hasn't found the end zone since week 1. Squeaky wheel gets the grease here. A little narrative in this game with him not doing much, and Will Fuller just absolutely going off. So maybe DeAndre Hopkins just like nudges Watson. He's like, yo, throw me a touchdown this week. Numbers are slacking a little bit as he's just been so dominant over the last few years, where it's tough to see him having 5 straight games where he doesn't do that much. And this is one of the best matchups you can ask for against a Chiefs team. Secondary, not great. Like I was mentioning with Watson, Chris Jones is out, one of their best pass rushers, so give him more time. And if DeAndre Hopkins is given that much time to get open, typically good things are going to happen. I mean, he wasn't that bad last week, 7 for 88. He said he didn't find the end zone. So it's $7,400 here, price down $400. Think he's a good value and good stack option with Deshaun Watson. Then we're going to go with Stefon Diggs. Obviously volatile in his ability this year, but just with the game script and the funnel defense, as I was mentioning with Kirk Cousins, I think he makes for a good stack with him. Obviously, Adam Thielen's in play as well, but more a GPP kind of angle here, where I think there's going to be a lot less ownership on a guy like Stefon Diggs. And typically, when he's given the targets, he does pretty well. I mean, this year, 7 targets and 2 games where they actually had the pass, coming back against Green Bay, coming back against Chicago, 19 DraftKings points in that game, lost the fumble. And so that should have been like 21 if he didn't fumble. And then also fumbled in this game where he got 10, so that could have been 12. And also had a touchdown call back from an offensive pass interference from Dalvin Cook, which I don't even think really impacted the play. So at 5,900 here, has shown the upside when they've had to pass the ball. And I think this is a good game for him against a bad secondary in the Philadelphia Eagles. So I'm going to go ahead and lock him in there as my second wide receiver. I don't really have a obvious pick right now as my third wide receiver. I think Larry Fitzgerald makes a lot of sense if Christian Kirk is in fact out, as the Falcons defense, as I've been mentioning, their secondary is terrible, allowing the most fantasy points per game to wide receivers currently. So I think he's a really good play. Even if Christian Kirk does play, I think he'll still be able to return some value there at 6,100. Then Tyreek Hill, another obvious guy if he plays and is 100% good to go, not limited in any way. I think at 6,900 against that Texans defense, he could have a huge game there at wide receiver. And there's not many crazy values. So I think most of the value, if you want to target, is going to be a running back, which seems safer. Auden Tate maybe at 4,500. He's been getting a lot of run and decent amount of targets week to week, but there's not any guys that really jump off the page when you look at wide receiver value this week. So that's kind of what I'm looking at for wide receiver. And now for tight end, Austin Hooper, obvious smash spot against the Arizona Cardinals. Anytime a tight end that's been solid against them has played, they've gotten over 18 DraftKings points. That's included Greg Olsen, Will Dissly, Mark Andrews, and TJ Hawkinson. The only one that didn't really do anything was Tyler Eifert, who hasn't been doing anything for the last 2 years. So I wasn't expecting Eifert to do anything really in that matchup, honestly, just because he's been washed up since he's been injured 100 times. But Austin Hooper has looked really good this year. He's run the most routes among tight ends. So the opportunities are crazy. When you combine opportunity with a very, very soft defense that against tight ends, it makes too much sense. I mean, if Austin Hooper asked me to run a few routes from there, I think I could catch a few balls against this Arizona defense from the tight end spot. So I'm going to go ahead and lock him in there as my tight end. If you want to pivot, I think a good pivot is Zach Ertz at 5,400, as Minnesota has a good cornerback to lock up a bigger body wide receiver and Xavier Rhodes against Alshon Jeffrey. Could be some struggles there. Zach Ertz will funnel in some more targets for him, especially with D-Jax out again this week. And they could struggle to run the ball. I mean, last week, even in a bad game script for Zach Ertz, the Jets just rolled over when the game started. They were not competitive at all, 31-6. Their one touchdown was block punt maybe touchdown or something, or a kick return, something like that. So that game, they didn't even need to use Ertz the whole entire game, but he still got 16 DraftKings points. And this game is going to be a much more positive game script against a defense that should funnel some work into him. So I think he's a really good pivot. And that is it for the plays. In this lineup, 4,400 remaining per player, definitely doable to fill out. I mean, defenses are pretty cheap besides 2 defenses. So if you go to a little bit cheaper, and then a mid 5,000 to 6,000 guy, if Larry Fitzgerald is the kind of main guy, if Christian Kirk is ruled out, you lock in Larry Fitzgerald, 2,700 remaining per for the defense. You could go with the 49ers. I think the Rams could maybe struggle there. A few sacks. I mean, they've been one of the best defenses, and they're pretty cheap there. So maybe the Jaguars, if you want to go them without Alvin Kamara. I could see Teddy Bridgewater struggling. So definitely some interesting options. I mean, defenses are super cheap. this week on DraftKings that you can target. So I think makes a lot of sense with all that value. So I hope you enjoyed the plays. If you did, drop a like in the video. Over 100 likes would be greatly appreciated. Like I mentioned before, it goes a long way. Also, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on any more plays. We're like 7 subscribers away from 8,000, so if we can hit that, that'd be amazing. Thank you. I really appreciate the support. Follow me on Twitter @MoneyWebby for any update tweets or anything like that, or any more takes I might have on the week. Good luck, though, and we'll see you back here again next time.